This is a presentation on reusability based on software components, and this is M. Sharma. Reusability means using the same thing again and again, and it's an important prerequisite for cost and time optimized software development. That is, if we reuse the artifacts of the software development, then we can save time and cost. And reusing knowledge and artifacts and not only source code, that is, by the general thought we think that source code is only reused. However, artifacts like testing and design of the software can also be reused. Reusability for component based systems. In component based systems, we reuse components so as to build new products from the old components. Library of frequently used components, allowing new programs to be assembled quickly. That is, when we are building new products, then we search for components and we assemble them to build a new product. Reusability is an important concept of software engineering which promises improvement in software productivity and quality. When software components are built, they are built by testing, and these tested components, they provide high quality services, and when we use them in our project later, then the tested components, they are hassle free in the new project. Advantages of component based software development are low cost, in time development, and high quality solutions. Necessity of software metrics to qualify various characteristics of components. That is, various software metrics should be used to qualify the components, which component we want to use, and whether the component provides our need, solves our need, should be assessed by software metrics and models. Component based software engineering. Software components, software package, web service, or web resource or a module that encapsulates a set of related functions or data. That is, any software package, web service, or web resource that provides functions to our custom build components. They are the software components. Components communicate with each other via interfaces. Each component, they expose interface so that other components can interact with it and provide the functionality of the software. In web, software components are objects. Objects, they act as components and interact with other objects to provide services to each other. Takes significant effort and awareness to write a software component that is effectively reusable. If we want to effectively reuse components, then extra effort has to be put so that the components we write and store are effective and really usable in further projects. For that, the components need to be fully documented, thoroughly tested, robust with comprehensive input validity checking, able to pass back appropriate error messages or return codes. That is, if the components fail, they should provide error message why it failed, designed with an awareness that it will be put to unforeseen uses. Components may be used in any scenario by the developers using it, so the components should be developed with such scenarios in mind. Tools of reusability. Incorporating reusable components into a software system requires programmers to be able to find and understand them. When new software is designed, the parts of the software that can be implemented using existing components should be identified, and they should be sourced and effectively used in the software. Software design based on components reusability is what software design has to incorporate. Specific tools by reusability: there are white box reusability, black box reusability, and glass box reusability. White box reuse: when reuse is attempted, developers usually have access to the implementation code that can be modified to match a new project's requirements. This approach, in which code modifications are permitted, is referred to as white box reuse. White box reuse, it provides facility to modify the code. However, this may have negative effects because the code has to be tested again since we have modified it. And the black box reuse, in contrast to white box reuse, black box reuse entails using software components as is with no code modifications. Developers need to know only the functionality of a software component and how it interfaces with its environment, and need not alter the component's internal logic code. Black box reusability: in black box reusability we don't have to test the components again because we use them as is. Glass box reusability provides the facility of black box reusability and some of the white box reusability. That is glass box reuse. In glass box reuse we use components as black box, that is we do not modify the code. However, we will be able to see the code so that it helps in the implementation of the components. Even if the documentation is not complete, glassbox reusability provides facility because we can see the code and understand how the components should be used. Reusability tools are based upon software testing development. That is, the software testing processes, they provide reusability tools. Components of reusability: greater schedule and effort savings than any other practice. The reusability concept has been found to provide greater effort savings and cost savings than any other practice. The concept applied not only to the code but also to the design, data documentation, test materials, specifications, and plans. That is, the components use, using components is not only using source code. Components can be other than source code. Components can be stored using component repository and searching and using components as required. We can create a repository of components in the organization so that any developer wanting to use the components can search the repository and use them as they like. Number of ways components are addressed: software component, distributed component, business component, group of component, and based on software development component. The software component is reusable piece of code or software in binary form which can be plugged into components from other vendors with relatively little effort. That is, they can be in binary form or in source code form. Distributed component are like Cobra, Java Beans, and Microsoft DCOM components. They are the network components or distributed components. Business component, they are the logical components that provide specific facility or specific services. of business importance, group of components, so components put together. Reusability metrics and models. Reusability is the degree to which a thing can be reused. Software reusability reduces amount of software to be developed from scratch. When we are reusing the software components, we don't have to build it from scratch and use it with little modification or without modification. Software development as capital investment. That is, if we are developing components, then it's sure that we will have to put some extra effort to make the components reusable in future projects, and this can be taken as capital investment because it will pay off later. Metric, it's a quantitative indicator of an attribute of a thing, and the model specifies relationship among metrics. Types of models and metrics in reusability. Categorization of reuse metrics and models. Here are the categories of reuse metrics and models. They are the cost benefit analysis, maturity assessment, amount of reuse, failure modes analysis, reusability assessment, reuse library metrics, cost benefit analysis model. It includes economic cost benefit analysis as well as quality and productivity payoff. Cost benefit model, it provides economic cost benefit analysis, and maturity assessment models categorize reuse programs by how advanced they are in implementing systematic reuse. Amount of reuse metrics are used to assess and monitor a reuse improvement effort by tracking percentages of reuse for lifecycle objects. The failure modes analysis is used to identify and order the impediments to reuse in a given organization. Reusability metrics, they indicate the likelihood that an artifact is reusable. That is, it will show whether the artifact is reusable or not. Reusable library metrics, they are used to manage and track uses of reuse repository. Thank you.